Today I'm talking about audiences, cold, warm, and hot audiences, because authors new to e-commerce wouldn't have a clue what they are, and it's important we know about them. Now, when you're selling on the retailers, you often talk about hot audiences. They're foremost on your mind. You mightn't recognise that that's what you're doing, though. So I just want to explain what it's all about. So first of all, watch this little video I made, and then I will get right into it. So there you have it. A cold audience is someone who's never heard of you. They don't know the first thing about you. They don't know you exist. You could be on another planet or on the other side of the world for all they know or care. They don't know anything about you. Never heard of you, don't know of your books. They know nothing. Now, a warm audience is somebody who's heard of you, but they haven't bought from you. Maybe they even subscribe to your newsletter, maybe to the retailers they might have signed up. On the back, maybe Amazon or one of the retailers recommended your book to them, but they've never bought. Maybe they've been to your website. Maybe they're even on your Facebook group or on your Facebook page, but they haven't bought yet. Now, the hot audience, these are people who've already bought from you. They know about you, they've already bought. Now, there's a lot of emphasis on having these people turn into repeat purchases, and of course that is important. But do you remember the funnel I just showed you? It's a funnel. It's wide at the top and it's very narrow at the bottom. Hot audiences are a tiny, tiny little percentage of cold audiences. And that's why the general advice is to put most of your paid advertising, at least 60%, into getting cold audiences. Now, this typically is more expensive, of course, but it's necessary. It always costs more to acquire a customer than it does to retain a customer. And that is why it is super important to nurture your current customers, your hot audience. But here's the thing. Only a tiny, tiny portion of this funnel will become your buyers, your hot audience. So you need a very wide funnel to start with, and that's your cold audience. You've got to get them in, typically through paid advertising such as Facebook or whatever else, but you've got to get them to you in the first place, because as I said, only a tiny, tiny percentage of those do become your hot audience. So you need them in the first place. Now, I do love diamonds, and I often compare this to diamond mining, even though I don't know anything about diamond mining, but in my mind, it's a good analogy. So the jewelry, the diamonds that end up as jewelry quality are a tiny proportion of those that are mined. So someone has to go out and mine all these diamonds in the first place. They go out and they mine a whole lot of diamonds, and then someone grades them and says, oh, no, these are only good for industrial. Okay, these are good for jewelry. Then they, cut and polish them, whatever else they do, and then it ends up in jewelry. But the thing is, the ones that end up in jewelry are a tiny, tiny percentage of the ones that are mined, and you need to mine them in the first place. And this is what authors selling on the retailers often overlook. They're thinking, how can I retain this reader? How can I retain this customer? How can I get them to love my book so they buy more and more? And of course, that's super important as well. But you need to get lots of these people in the very first place, and that's what I'm talking about today. You have to get the cold audience into your funnel. You have to go out and do the diamond mining. So it would be like someone who wanted to, say, have a big diamond business, and all they could think about were turning these diamonds into jewelry, but there was no one to mine them in the first place. They wouldn't have a very good business, would they? And often I see people do things on their Shopify stores that would only work for a hot audience, audiences who already know who they are, because they have the wrong things above the fold, like purchase information. They don't hook the reader, and they do very well when they start selling direct because they're only selling to their hot audience. But a cold audience comes along, takes one look at their page and leaves really quickly. And this is the problem. So when selling on the retailers, people are mostly focused on hot audiences. Sure, people will do Facebook ads, traffic ads to the retailers, whatever they do, AMS ads, Amazon ads, they will try to get the cold audience. But most of the time they don't recognise that these are cold audiences, people who've never heard of them. And a very common thing I hear with selling direct is I have to train my readers to do this and that. Here's the catch. This is your hot audience. You don't need to train a cold audience to do anything because they've never heard of you. Now, people typically say, I have to train my readers to buy from me instead of the retailers. And that's fair enough. Like, you can send out a newsletter to your current readers on your non-e-commerce list and tell them you have a store, etc. But that's only your hot audience. Bear that in mind. I want you to get the difference between the cold, the warm, and the hot, because we have to treat each one differently. We market to each one differently. Everything is different. So that's super important to get that right. So when you hear people talking about training readers, they're only talking about their hot audience. There are people out there already who are buying from online stores. They don't need to be trained to do anything. You just have to get the ones that buy books and would like your type of book into your store, and that's your cold audience, and you get them into your funnel, cold, warm, hot, and Bob's your uncle. You only need to tell your current readers that you have a store. Some of them will never buy from you. Hell will freeze over before they'll buy from you, but other people will actually buy from you. But as I said, hot audience, don't be confused and think these are warm or cold audiences. The cold audience haven't heard from you. Plenty of cold audience people are used to e-commerce and will buy from stores. You don't have to worry about that. So bear in mind when someone says this or that is the case, is this retailer thinking or is it e-commerce thinking? E-commerce thinking is aware there are different types of audiences. Now, most of the budget with Facebook sales ads to your store, most of it, at least 60%, will go to getting the cold audience to your store. In e-commerce, Facebook works in with your e-commerce email and SMS marketing system. Of course, I use and recommend Klaviyo. Since I'm a Klaviyo partner, obviously I would recommend them because I use them and I love Klaviyo. But when you get somebody to your site, once they start browsing, if they don't do anything else, then Klaviyo will pick them up and start marketing to them. So let's break it down. You get people to your store by various means, say Facebook, sales ads, not traffic. Remember, save those for the retailers. When you don't have a choice, you have to have them. But we use sales ads for bookstores, for e-commerce, for selling your books on Shopify, for example. And then when you get them to your store, the person might purchase, well, then they become a hot audience, but they might browse, they might add to cart, they might add to checkout, in which case Klaviyo will then pick them up. Your email and SMS marketing system will pick them up. And as I always say, they don't need to have subscribed for Klaviyo to pick them up, because if they're logged into Shopify or if they're subscribed to Klaviyo for someone else, or if you integrate your Facebook with Klaviyo, it will pick all those people up and it will send them a browse abandonment email if they've just browsed. If they've added to cart and then left, they will get a abandoned cart email, or if they've added to checkout, then if they'll get an abandoned checkout. And there's so many things you can do, and you can customize this to the nth degree. So say Fred Blogs comes along and buys the first 3 books in your series, then you can you can have this all set up automatically to market the next book in the next few books in the series to Fred Blogs. And remember, we want a high average order value. So don't think in terms of individual books, think in terms of bundles. And you always cross-sell and upsell because you want a high average order value, because individual books aren't worth much at all. So we need to be thinking bundles, high average order value, and so on. So when you get the cold audience, then Klaviyo can take over for you and start marketing to them. And if they do subscribe to your list, then you can send them campaigns as well. And then you can get this person to be a customer. When they're a customer, they're a hot audience, and then you retain that customer. You have to nurture that customer and retain. But as I keep saying, it's far more expensive to acquire a customer than it is to retain a customer. So that's where most of our work goes. It's in the diamond mining. We have to do a lot of diamond mining and get a lot of diamonds into that funnel, cold audience, in order to get customers. Think diamond jewelry. So this is super important. So for e-commerce, it's important for us to get lots and lots of cold audience people in by marketing to a cold audience, because by the law of averages, your customers, your hot audience, are a tiny proportion of those. So say someone goes out and they have a tiny, they're getting hardly anyone into their Shopify store. Then they've only got their current readers, and that's not sustainable. You need to be getting more readers all the time. Don't keep marketing to your hot audiences. This is where you'll see someone maybe blow up on TikTok, or they've come over from Amazon where they're, say, a 7-figure author. They'll go to selling direct, and then they'll put on all the Facebook groups how much money they're making. And then typically a few months later, they'll be lamenting that they're not making money anymore. Why is that? I can tell you. It's because they've leveraged their hot audiences. So they're marketing to their current readers, and they're taking the current readers from the retailers over to their store. And that's all well and good, that's fine. But if you don't have your store set up correctly, if you don't have your e-commerce flows set up correctly, if that's not all in place, then that's as far as you're going to get. You're going to be stuck with your current readers. And that it is super, super important in e-commerce to get that cold audience in. Don't rely on your hot audience. They're going to dry up, aren't they? Imagine a jewelry store that has stock, and they've got a limited amount of customers, and that's all they've got. Think diamond mining. You're mining for customers with cold audiences. You have to get them in. So when you sell on your e-commerce store, you're selling to customers, you're selling to your hot audience. But a hot audience was once a warm audience, which was once a cold audience. The more cold audience people you get into your store, the better. That's why you have to cast your net wide. And the marketing strategies to each are different. Cold audiences, you get them to your store. Once they even just are looking at products, if they've come through Facebook, if they're a Klaviyo person of anyone else, subscriber of anyone else, or if they've logged in with their Shopify account, Klaviyo will pick them up. It's not going to pick up everyone, is it? This is not like an ideal world. It won't pick up everyone, but it'll pick up a lot of them. And then it will start serving them flows. And along that way, you will get that person from becoming a cold audience person to a warm, to a hot. And you retarget and re-engage with Facebook ads as well, your hot and your warm audiences, and you keep your warm audiences happy. Of course you do. But this is a big mistake I have seen with retailer thinking, with people who are new to, authors who are new to selling on Shopify, is that they think that the hot audience people are the only ones they have. They completely overlook the cold audience, and a cold audience is essential. Remember, there would be no diamonds without diamond mining. Super important. Do not neglect your cold audience. And please don't say, how do I train readers to buy from me? You don't. Please bear in mind, you're talking about your hot audience, your current readers. You can do whatever you like to help them get them to your store, but bear in mind, some will never buy from you. They'll keep buying from the retailers. But please bear in mind, this is your hot audience you're talking about, and I want you to be aware of that. It's only your hot audience, a tiny proportion of your funnel. You don't need to do anything to train people who've never heard of you, and they will come because these people will be used to buying. Most of them anyway, will be used to buying from online stores. They're used to Shopify. Like, it's not the dark ages, is it? The internet's been around a little while now. People are used to buying online. Get with the program. You don't need to do anything to get people, to train people to buy from you, because these people are already buying online. If they see, say, a Facebook ad for your book, they will come to your store. They will realise it's an online store. They're either going to buy or they won't, but you don't need to train them to do anything. And once they're in your funnel system, then they're in your funnel system and you can get them to being a hot audience. So next time you yourself say something or you hear someone else say something, ask yourself, are they only talking about a hot audience? Does this apply to a warm audience or a cold audience? Or is this only a hot audience? Because people will make blanket statements. Authors used to selling on the retailers make blanket statements and say this is the case. But it's often only the case with a hot audience and does not at all apply to a cold audience. Remember, e-commerce, you have the funnel. The cold audience is the big part of the funnel, the big part where they all come in and you need more customers, more readers. You don't want to just go with the ones you've already got. So it's super, super important to bear in mind that these are the three types of audience, and don't neglect the cold audience, because that's where the money is. The money is in the cold audience. It is more expensive to acquire a customer than it is to retain one. So it's super important to retain your hot audience, super important. But once they've read all your books, where are they going to go? It's not sustainable. You need more people coming into your funnel. The bigger the cold audience, the better. Bear that in mind. All right, then please like and subscribe if you don't want ads. I can't get rid of ads until I have a certain amount of watch hours and a certain amount of subscribers. So if you don't like those ads, please like and subscribe. Bye for now.